And good evening. Welcome to AITQR Mini Mic. We're a community theatre group that deals with immigrant artists and occasions of displacement, which in many cases can be a permanent situation for many immigrants. Tonight, I have the great honor of presenting. Not only is he's an immigrant, he's a creative, he's a director, a writer, a performer. He's also an immigration lawyer.
So I've actually been there. I've been on the H-1B twice, and in order to just cover enough time so I could finally apply for the green card. And throughout the entire period, it was like, do I stay? Do I not stay? Am I going to be able to get the visa renewed this time? If I do, what I do I uproot myself? I already made friends here, relationships here. Do I leave that all behind? What do I do? And then once you get the green card, oh my God, it's just like a huge burden has lifted, and you don't have to oh my God, freak out about this anymore. Hopefully we don't now with this current president, but we'll see.
Well, my friends, they're like, what do you mean you're doing this or that? And I say, guys, I got a green card. It only took 17 years, but I've got one. They're like, oh, wow, really? So you're going to do this and that? And I'm like, yes, I couldn't do it before. You don't understand. They don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's very much why I stay very cemented in the immigrant world, because when you've spent as long as I have in it, you really know that there's two sides to this world. And that's where we're going to go tonight, because Marcus has written a musical about residents and immigrants in Queens, and he's ventured outside of the country to Singapore, I believe, to cast it.
I'm so sorry for all your sacrifices for me. I'm so sorry for treating you indifferently. I'm so sorry for the things I never got to say. I didn't cherish you before you went away.
Now I'm going to do his intro. All right, let me tell you a little bit about him, and I'm going to skip to the short one because there's so much there's accolades written about this guy. So we're just going to jump through it. He's an award-winning theatre writer, composer, director, and performer based in New York. He's created work in Singapore, Atlanta, and New York, and is the artistic director of Morbid Dumpling Productions, which we love the name.
So I'm actually part of this program called the Artist Commissioning Program, and it's created by Queens Council on the Arts. I think it's its third year. And what they do is that they pick two separate areas in Queens, two separate neighborhoods. So for my year, it's the Flushing neighborhood and the Ridgewood-Matsplit area. So they get a bunch of community stakeholders, people who live in the area, people who work in the area, and they sort of form the artistic panel. And then for the artist side, yeah, you can actually pitch them ideas as to stories about their neighborhoods. They're really, really interested in, having artists be commissioned and create work about these specific neighborhoods. So I picked Flushing because I used to live and work there. And my pitch was I wanted to do a musical about food courts. I've always wanted to do a food court musical. I just wasn't sure whether it was going to be an American musical, American food court, or more like an Asian food court kind of thing. So since this opportunity came up, I figured, there are a lot of food courts in Flushing. Why don't I create a musical that is basically set around a food court? So it's called Lucky 88, which is the name of the food court. And there are basically three stalls there. There's the hand-pulled noodle stall, which is run by Shen Zha, the older male character, and his son, Brendan. The dumpling stall is run by an older lady around 50s called Mei Ling. And the last stall is the bubble tea stall, which is run by Si Ling, also an old woman. She's around her 50s. And her daughter is 18 and wants to be a pop star.
And I promise you from the bottom of my heart, I won't let you down. I'm so sorry for the moments that I wasted. I'm so sorry for the dreams you left untasted. I'm sorry for not reaching out a hand. I just hope you understand.
So it's really about like these three families and how their stories interweave with each other and how they deal with like gentrification in Flushing. Because right now in Flushing, there's a lot of like new money coming in from China. There's a lot of like new developments, but that's basically displacing all the older generation of immigrants that have come in like the 90s and the early 2000s. So that's really the backdrop of like what's happening with the food court, because on the larger scale, the food court is actually about to close because the building's going to be sold to like developers who want to tear it down and build luxury condominiums. But at like a very core level, you have the three different families and their three different stories and the three different struggles and how they sort of interweave with each other and how they help each other through this difficult time.
So many times I try to come out and say it. Sometimes I wish it was like before. No matter how much I try to replay it, it ends with you walking out the door. I was always the smart one, always did well in school, never let you down. Always hit the home run, always followed the rule. Now I'm starting to drown.
Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got to be an immigration lawyer in America, in New York, in the greatest city in the world, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came to the United States in 2005. I actually came for a musical theater degree program at the University of Tampa. And then after the program, I realized that I was just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. I wasn't sure that I really wanted to continue being an artist, doing theater and all that kind of thing. So I decided that I was going to stay in the United States. My entire family actually moved to the United States and they all had their green cards, but because I was over 21, it was going to take like 7 or 8 years before I could even get my green card. So I had to figure out a way of like staying or deciding that I was just going to leave my parents and go back to Singapore or something like that. So I decided to stay. And in order to like figure out my next path, I decided to go to law school. And it was kind of a horrible experience. Hated law school. But it also allowed me to reconnect with my artistic side, because as part of going to law school, I was very, very sad. And I really needed some kind of artistic outlet. Like most of my classmates were like poli-sci majors, so they're not artists at all. It's a very, very different world. So I needed something that sort of like would allow me to connect back to like my artistic side. So I started taking piano lessons from this Jewish guy in the neighborhood. I actually went to St. John, so like all of this was happening in Queens. And he taught me like music theory, he taught me like chord theory. And then from then on, I just started like, writing my own music. Initially, I wanted to be like a singer-songwriter, but then all my songs started becoming like more musical-like. There was like a story arc to it. It was like a musical monologue. So I thought, hey, why don't I go back to the thing that I've always loved, which is musical theater. And now I can actually write and tell the stories that I want to tell. So that's how I sort of like came back full circle in terms of like going to law school, thinking that I was going to give up theater for the rest of my life, but instead finding a path where I could do like theater as well as law at the same time. And also this path of like going back to theater, I started getting a lot of friends after law school who had problems with like immigration issues because they were mostly artists. They were going to apply for the O1. So initially I took on a couple of cases for free. And then after that, it sort of just like bloomed into this business where, sometimes I will have a client and the client will turn into like an artistic collaborator, or the other way around, where like an artistic collaborator will end up needing like immigration help or something like that. And that's how I basically, became both an immigration lawyer and an artist. I love doing both. I do not want to give either one of them up at this point. I don't think it's a great idea for me to just focus on one thing, because it just, I love how it like stimulates both sides of the brain. And I think, it's just a really nice break from either one of them. When I do a lot of art, it gives me like, a lot of pain in a different way. And when I do a lot of law, it gives me a lot of pain in a different way. So it's kind of nice to be able to like go back and forth and like have this like nice symbiotic relationship between like my law practice and my artistic practice as well. So the father actually thinks that the son is going to law school, but the son is not going to law school. He actually has been lying to his dad because he wants to go into the food business, the business that his father is in. But his father's like, I don't want to do that. So he's actually been lying to his dad. He's actually been taking classes at culinary school and really wants to be like a chef. So there's like that tension. And then for Mei Ling, I think that story is really more about like later in life dating. because this is like, the stereotype in terms of like, older Asian women is sort of like you become like this sexless creature that, has, no sex appeal or has no sex drive or something like that, which I find really ridiculous because it doesn't matter what age you are, you can have sex appeal and you are going to have sex drive. I mean, I have friends who are like in their 80s right now and they're getting it on. I know they're getting it on right now. So I was like, why don't I write a character that's like, about later in life dating? Like that's rarely seen in musical theater and never seen at like, musical theater for Asian people like ever. So that's the reason why I want to put these stories like into like this musical.
But the weight of expectation crushes conversation, flooding with feelings of dread. The waters are rising from my own devising. I'm in over my head. The lies I keep making are so suffocating, dragging me down to the end. I'm at the point of breaking, but the tide's overtaking, forcing me to descend. Underwater, the pressure starts to build underwater. Your dreams die unfulfilled underwater. Rock bottom on the sand. If I told you, would you understand?
So I actually asked on Facebook, like, are there any directors who would be interested in directing this musical? And several of people actually replied. So it's turned into like this like multinational collaboration kind of thing. I've had several groups that are like New York City based or sort of half New York City, half Taiwanese based. And then I had one group from Singapore that was like purely, well, it wasn't even purely Singaporean because I think like two of the cast members were from Malaysia. But my friend in Singapore, his name is Chen, and he runs this collective called the 7-8 Collective, and he was really interested in helping to develop the show. So he put together like a Zoom reading with a bunch of different actors, some of them from Singapore, some of them from Malaysia, all of them wonderful and fabulous. And it was just really, really nice to see like different voices and different perspectives on the piece, because I actually wrote the piece as a very American piece, a very Asian American piece. So it's very interesting to see how like people from a different culture that is not Asian American, how they view the piece and how they would interpret it. And I'm currently having a group that's sort of like, I think they span the Philippines, Taiwan, and the United States right now. So it's sort of turning into like this giant international collaboration. And the next phase of it is gonna be like a video component where we have to like showcase the entire reading as part of like our final like showing of the project. And my music editor is currently in India, and some of my audio editors are like in Venezuela or other parts of South America. So it's like very turning into this like giant international project at this point.